Welcome to the Idiot's Guide. I'm Mackie Hall, and patterns fascinate me. Why? Because perhaps they are the least respected aspect of design. When we're in school, nobody talks about patterns, but that being said, they're incredibly valuable. Patterns breathe life to basic shapes, and in rooms and interiors, they give depth to furniture and walls. In print and web advertisements, they give the eye an easy reason to look further. The good thing is, using Illustrator, patterns are easy to build. So with that in mind, I'm going to give you a basic primer on how to build 5 basic patterns. The patterns I'll teach you are a checker pattern, a running pattern, a cubic pattern, a simple plaid pattern, and a diagonal plaid pattern. That being said, we've got lots to do, so let's get started. All right, before we get started, I want to mention that the colors that we've pulled from coolers.co. It's a great website. All you need to do to get the colors that you want is visit coolers.co, explore, and then select from any of the thousands of palettes that are available. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk about the color chips that we've got. You can see them at the top left-hand corner of our artboard. The first color, the darkest salmon, is F08080. Our middle color, or salmon color, is F8AD9D. And our lightest color of the 3 color chips is FFDAB9. I recommend that you create these color chips and place them at the top left-hand corner of your page as well for easy access. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk about our setup. First thing I want to mention is we are using the Essentials Classic layout. To use that, all you need to do is go to the top right-hand corner of your page and select Essentials Classic. Next thing I want to mention is that we are using Smart Guides. To activate Smart Guides, all you need to do is select View and select Smart Guides. You can also hit Control U. Last thing I want to mention is that we are going to be using the bottom of the page to offer tips and tricks, key command, and hotkey recommendations. Now that we've got that out of the way, we're going to select our color chips, copy them. You can copy by selecting Edit Copy or Control C. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new document. Our new document will have an artboard that's 1,000 points wide, 1,000 points tall, a single artboard in the RGB color mode. Once we've created our new file, we're going to paste our color chips in place. Again, we can select Edit, Paste in Front, or Control F. We can also select Edit, Paste in Place. Now that we've got that done, let's create our first pattern swatch. We're going to do that by selecting a rectangle tool, clicking anywhere beneath our color swatches. We're going to create a rectangle that's 50 points by 50 points. It's also a square. Once done, if not already selected, let's go ahead and go to our default colors. That is a white fill and a black stroke. Once done with that, we're going to grab our selection tool, copy and paste in front. We're going to hold our Shift key down. That allows our elements to move in 10-point increments as opposed to 1-point increments. We're going to arrow it down 5 times. That's also 50 points. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to our selection tool. We're going to select both of our squares. Again, we'll copy and paste in front. We'll hold our Shift key and we'll arrow to the right 5 times or 50 points. We'll deselect our element. And then we're going to select our top left shape and our bottom right shape. We're going to do that by holding our Shift key. We'll click on our top left shape and our bottom right shape. Next, we're going to grab our eyedropper tool and we'll click on our darkest color. Next, we'll add colors to our other 2 shapes. We're going to do that by grabbing our selection tool. We'll deselect our shapes. And again, we'll hold our Shift key and select the top right and bottom left shape. Next, we'll grab our eyedropper tool and we'll select our lightest color. Once done with that, we'll grab our selection tool, deselect our shape, and this is our initial color swatch. The way we create a pattern swatch is we open up our swatches menu by either clicking on Swatches on our right-hand menu. Or if you don't see it there, you can always go to Window, Swatches, and open it there. Now that that's open, we're going to grab our selection tool. We'll select our initial pattern swatch, and we'll click and drag it into our swatches window. Once there, we'll deselect our shape, and then we're going to go back to our swatches window and double click on our new swatch. Note that the pattern options window opens up. And let's start by renaming our swatch name to Pattern 1. Next, now note that we've got our grid as tile type. We're going to leave that alone for now. Next, note that the width and height for our pattern matches the original swatch size. Next, if we go down to the bottom, we can change the number of copies around our original swatch. If we want to occupy almost the entire page, we'll change our copies from 5 by 5 to 9 by 9. And notice it takes up the entire page. If we want to focus on our original pattern swatch, we can always dim copies. Right here, let's dim the copies from 100% down to 50%. You can always hide the copies as well by dragging your copy dimness down to 0%. In this case, let's go back to 100%. And let's exit our pattern options. We do that by clicking on the left arrow at the top left-hand corner of your screen. That indicates that you're going to exit the pattern editing mode. Now that we're done with that, let's test out our new swatch. We're going to grab our rectangle tool. We're going to click beneath our original swatch. We're going to create a rectangle that's 200 points by 200 points. And you'll notice straight away that our new pattern becomes visible. If it is not selected already, maybe it's black instead, all you need to do is go into your swatches and select your new pattern. Now that we're done with that, let's grab our selection tool, let's deselect, and let's move on to our second pattern. Now, as you just saw, we're going to create a new pattern. This new pattern is called a running pattern. Here's how we do that. First thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our selection tool if it's not already selected. We're going to click and drag across our right two squares. We're going to copy and paste them in front. We're going to hold our Shift key. We're going to arrow clear of our first pattern swatch. Once done, we're going to deselect, and these two blocks will comprise the swatch for our second pattern. Let's create it. First thing we're going to do is we're going to drag across our squares using the selection tool. We're then going to click and drag into our swatches window. Once done, we're going to deselect our shapes, and once again, we'll double click on our new swatch. First thing we're going to do is we're going to rename our pattern swatch to Pattern 2. And this time around, let's experiment with tile type. By default, our tile type is set to grid. This time around, we're going to change it to brick by row. Note that that doesn't have much effect considering that our bricks are already staggered by row. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to change our tile type to brick by column. And because the brick offset is set to 1/2, our pattern becomes a checker pattern. That's an easy way to create one, but we're not going for that. Instead, let's look at staggering our patterns just a little bit less so that we create our running pattern. Let's change our offset to 1/4. And right away, that's close to what we're looking for. If you'd like to change your offset to go in the opposite direction, we'll change our offset from 1/4 to 3/4. And that is what you might be looking for. We'll stick with this for now. Let's go ahead and exit our pattern editing mode. Let's go ahead and test our new pattern by grabbing our selection tool. We'll click on our first display square. We'll copy and paste that in front. We're going to arrow to the right, holding our Shift key, until our new shape is clear of our first shape. Next thing we're going to do is, with our shape still selected, we'll select our new swatch. Let's deselect, and we're done. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, for this go around, we're going to get a little bit more complex. This time around, we're going to create a cubic pattern. With that in mind, let's click and hold our rectangle tool, and let's select our polygon tool. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the right of our second swatch, and we'll click anywhere. We're going to create a polygon with a 50-point radius and 6 sides. Now that we've done that, if we haven't already done so, let's go back to our default color setup. Again, we'll have a white fill and a black stroke. Next, we're going to take our polygon and we're going to rotate it 90 degrees. We're going to do this by grabbing our rotate tool, double clicking with our shape still selected, and we're going to rotate and we're going to set the angle to 90 degrees. Once done with that, let's grab our selection tool if we need to, and let's drag our shape to the right of our second shape. Now that we've got that, let's zoom into our shape. The way we're going to do that is we'll keep our shape selected, we'll hold our control key, and we're going to zoom in by holding our control key and hitting the plus sign. Note, by doing that, we zoom into the shape that we've selected. Now let's go ahead and create the cube. Here's how we're going to do that. We're going to deselect our shape, and we're going to grab our pen tool. This time around, we're just going to draw lines through our shape. We're going to start by going to the top center of our shape, clicking on the anchor point, and going straight to our bottom anchor point. And we'll click there just like that. Once done, we'll grab our selection tool, deselect our shape, and then we're going to go back to our pen tool. This time around, we're going to click on the top left anchor point and then go across to our bottom right anchor point. We're going to deselect by grabbing our selection tool and clicking off our shape one more time. And again, we're going to grab our pen tool and we're going to draw one more line. This time around, we're going to go from our top right hand anchor point down to our bottom left anchor point. Again, we'll grab our selection tool and we're going to deselect our shape. In order to create individual cubic shapes, we're going to transition to a new tool. This tool is called Shape Builder. The first thing we're going to do is, with our selection tool still selected, we're going to click and drag across our entire shape or group of shapes. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our Shape Builder tool. We'll click on that. We're going to start by dragging across the shapes that we want to create. Note that if we drag across each shape, it highlights individual shapes that would be created. To create our top cube, we're going to click across both of our top shapes, and then we're going to continue that by going to the right side and clicking across our right shapes. That forms a right cube. And let's do the same thing for our bottom left. That's going to create our bottom left cube. Now that we've done that, if we grab our selection tool and deselect our shape, you can see that we've created 3 individual shapes. Let's get started coloring them. First thing we'll do is we'll zoom out just a little bit. That allows us to see our color chips. And then we're going to be sure that our top shape is selected. Once we've got that selected, let's grab our eyedropper tool and let's select our lightest color. Once done, let's grab our selection tool and let's click on our bottom right-hand shape. This time around, again, we're going to grab our eyedropper tool and select our middle color. Let's finish that out by grabbing our selection tool, deselecting our shape, and then selecting our bottom left-hand cube element. Once done with that, let's grab our eyedropper tool and let's select our darkest color. Now that we've done that, let's grab our selection tool, we'll click off of our shape, and let's bring the entire page into view. We do that by hitting Control-0, and now you can see our new pattern swatch. Let's bring it alive by grabbing our selection tool, dragging across our shape, and then clicking and dragging it into our swatches window. Once done, we're going to deselect our shape one more time. We'll double click on our cube swatch. Let's start by renaming it Pattern 3. Now that we've done that, let's start playing with our tile types. Again, our default is grid. Let's click and select brick by row. We're not too far off, but that's not exactly what we're looking for, so let's continue. We'll select brick by column. Again, not quite. Select hex by column. We're close, but not quite. Let's go one more time, and we'll select hex by row. And that is exactly what we're looking for. Now that we're done with that, let's go ahead and exit the pattern editing mode by clicking the left arrow at the top left-hand corner of your screen. And let's test out our new pattern. We'll do that by grabbing our selection tool if it's not selected. Clicking on our second square, we'll copy and paste that in front. We'll hold our shift key and again arrow it until it is clear of our second square. Once done, with our square still selected, let's select our new pattern. Let's deselect, and there you go, we've created a cubic pattern. Next thing we're going to do is let's go with something a little bit more customized. In this case, we're going to create a plaid pattern. Let's start by grabbing our rectangle tool. And then to the right of our third pattern, let's click and release, and let's create a rectangle that's 100 points by 100 points. Again, that's also a 100-point square. If your default colors are not selected, let's go ahead and select them now. Again, the fill is white and the stroke is black. Once we've done that, let's zoom into our shape, again making sure our shape is selected, then hitting our control key and the plus sign, and we'll zoom in. Once we're done with that, let's start creating the plaid. As you can see on the top right-hand corner of your page, that's what we're going for. With that in mind, let's copy and paste our square in front. We're going to do that again by selecting our shape with the selection tool if it's not already selected. And then let's go edit copy, edit paste in front, or of course, Control C and Control F. Once we've done that, let's double click on our scale tool. And let's uniformly scale our shape down to 40%. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to do that same thing again. We're going to grab our original square. And again, we're going to double click on our scale tool. Once we've done that, let's change our scale to non-uniform. And let's scale it horizontally to 100% and vertically to 10%. Once done with that, let's select copy. Let's do that one more time. This time around, let's create a vertical rectangle. We'll grab our selection tool. We'll click on our original square. And let's double click on our scale tool. This time around, we're going to keep our scale non-uniform, and we're going to scale it horizontally 10% and vertically to 100%. Once again, we'll copy. Let's grab our selection tool and let's deselect. That's pretty close to what we're looking for, but in this case, we want to move our rectangles to the front of our smaller square. We do that by selecting both of our rectangles and then arranging them to be in front. Here's how we do that. With our selection tool still selected, we're going to hold our shift key down so we can select multiple objects. We'll select both rectangles. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to right click on our shape. We'll select arrange, then bring to front. A couple other ways to arrange your objects. You can always go to object, arrange, then select bring to front, or of course you can select shift control right bracket. Once done with that, let's deselect our shape. And we're pretty close. Let's zoom out a little bit to bring our color chips into play. Now that we've done that, let's add color. First thing we're going to do is we'll select our main square. Let's grab our eyedropper tool and let's select our lightest color. Once done with that, let's grab our selection tool once again. And let's select our smaller square. This time around, we'll grab the eyedropper tool and let's select our middle color. Last but not least, let's grab our selection tool and let's select both of our rectangles by deselecting our shape, then holding our shift key and selecting both of the rectangles. Again, the shift key allows us to select multiple elements. Once we've done that, let's grab the eyedropper tool and let's select our darkest color. Once done, let's grab our selection tool, deselect by clicking anywhere on our artboard, and that is the shape we are looking to build. And we've just created our new plaid swatch. Once we've done that, Let's grab our selection tool. We'll drag across our entire swatch, then click and drag it into our swatches. Once done, let's deselect our shape and let's double click on our new pattern swatch. Once pattern options comes up, let's rename our pattern to pattern 4. And note straight away, that is the pattern that we are looking for. Let's go ahead and exit pattern editing mode, again by clicking the left arrow at the top left-hand corner of your screen. Let's bring the whole page into view. And let's test out our new pattern by grabbing our selection tool, and let's select our first pattern shape. We'll copy and paste it in front. We'll hold our shift key and arrow directly beneath our first pattern. Once done, let's go ahead and select pattern 4. Let's deselect, and we've created one more pattern. Let's take things one step further by creating a diagonal pattern this time. Here's how we do that. With our selection tool still selected, let's click and drag across our 4th swatch. We'll copy and paste it in front. We'll hold our shift key and arrow clear of our 4th swatch. Once done, let's grab our rotate tool. We'll double click and let's rotate our swatch 45 degrees. That's the swatch we're looking for. So let's create a new pattern swatch out of it. With our shape still selected, let's grab our selection tool. Let's click and drag into our swatches. Once done, let's deselect our swatch. Let's double click. And under pattern options, let's rename our new swatch pattern 5. Now that we've done that, let's experiment with tile types. Let's select brick by row. That's pretty close, but again, it's not a match. Let's go to brick by column. Again, it's close, but not a match. But if we look beneath our tile types and brick offsets, you'll notice that we can set the width and the height of our pattern. If we change the width to half of what it currently is, we can get the pattern to exactly what we want. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to select our width, and we're going to change our width to 70.2107. We'll tab off, and we've got the pattern that we are looking for. Let's go ahead and exit our pattern editing mode, and let's preview our new pattern. Once again, here's how we're going to do that. We're going to grab our selection tool. We're going to click on our 4th square. We'll copy and paste it in front. We'll hold our shift key and arrow clear of our 4th square. Once done, all we need to do is go to our swatches window and click on our 5th swatch. Let's deselect that square. Looks good. We are done. All right, we're done. Well, with what I just taught you in mind, I've decided that I'm going to build a series of tutorials on patterns. Why? Because it'll be an easy way to take you from beginner to advanced in pattern building. So keep an eye out for that. With that being said, if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below. Otherwise, throw me a like. I'd really appreciate that. And lastly, subscribe. We'll see you next time. See ya.